Hey everyone, in this video we're going to go over section 6.3 and 6.4, sampling estimators and the central limit theorem. So hopefully you have gone through your notes already. I had you select 10 words from this passage, and if you printed the handout then you can circle them, but otherwise you can just look through and write down your 10 words and then figure out what the length of the word is and whether it contains the letter E. And as you read through it, you may have noticed that this is the lyrics to Beyonce's Crazy in Love song, and it was released in 2003. So we're considering this passage a population of words, and the 10 words you selected are considered a sample from that population. So normally we don't get to have the entire population at our disposal. We don't know how many people are in the population, so we don't know exactly the mean unless it's a census, right? But if I wanted to estimate something about the entire population of community college students in the US, there's just no way for me to have the entire population, the number of students that are community college students in the entire US. And so we take representative samples, and then the idea is that by taking many samples from the same population, we're able to approximate parameters for that population. So in this case, each of you have taken 10 words. These were my 10 words. And then I counted the number of letters and then whether it contains the letter E or not. And so then we're going to calculate the average length of the 10 words. So for me, this is the sum, and the proper symbol is X bar, right? Because this is the average of a sample. So I add them all up and divide by 10, which gives me 52 divided by 10. And I should really be using parentheses here to make sure that if you're doing this on a calculator, make sure that you're using parentheses over the whole thing, divided by 10. Otherwise, it will just do 4 divided by 10 and add it up. Your calculator automatically does order of operations. And then the proportion of words that have the letter E will be counting up how many of your words have the letter E. So for me, I had 4 letters out of 10. 4 words out of 10. And so that gives me a proportion of 0.4. And the symbol for proportion is p hat. So this is different than for the population. So when you have a sample, the sample mean is X bar. For a population, the population parameter is mu, the Greek letter mu. For the proportion, when you have a sample, is p hat. And for a population is just plain p, or sometimes you'll see the symbol pi. All right, so go ahead and hopefully you already took your Beyonce survey number 1. When I had recorded this video, I did not have enough people who had taken the survey. So what you'll see here is my class, the class that I teach in person, their dot plot with their results. And so the mean, what we got, the mean of the sample means was 4.66. And the reason that this is the mean of the sample means, right, is because each dot, so when you complete your survey, what you input there was your sample mean, your sample of 10 words. So each dot represents everyone's own sample of 10 words. So each dot represents the average for 10 words that different people picked. So the 4.66 here is the average of this sample means. So what are the observational units of the above graph? The observational unit is the length of the words, and the variable is the average length. So we're looking at the length of the word, and then we're keeping track of the average length, right? So each dot represents the average length. So that is the variable that we're tracking. So that's for this graph. Up here, the observational unit will be the words in the passage, and then the variable will be the length of the word, but this is a little bit different. We're graphing now the observational units is the length of the word. We're looking at what that is, and then we're plotting what was the average. So that's what this dot plot represents. So looking at the dot plot from the sample mean length for each student, did each student have the same value of a sample mean? No, right? How do you know? Well, because there are different ones. Some people got close to 7. Some people got really close to 3. Very short length of words. And so there are everybody got different means. So that is a sampling variability. There is variability from sample to sample from the same population. Remember, our population here is the words in the passage. Estimate the center of the dot plot. Then use StatCrunch to find the center of the data set of all the sample means from our class. So the center, we said, appears to be between 4 and 5. And then once I graphed it here, we put 4.66. So we're going to go on StatCrunch and find the data there. So when you go to StatCrunch, let's go to, when you're in the home page, log on. So go to your My Lab and then click on StatCrunch and then go to StatCrunch and go to My Groups. And once you're in My Groups, select the ARC Fall 22 and then we're going to go to Beyonce number 1. So once you open the data, we want to graph and go to dot plot and then select our column. So Beyonce and select compute. And so here we can see our dot plot of the data. I'm going to crunch it up just to see what kind of shape it has, but it is pretty much what we had on the board. So when it's like this, it's a little bit hard to see what the mean is because it's so spread out. So another thing that we can do is go to Edit from Options and click on Markers and the green one for the mean, and then it will mark the mean for us. Click Compute, and now notice that it tells us where the mean is, and when you hover over it, it tells you the mean is 4.66. That's how I got that number. The other way that we can do it, right, is go to Calculators, and Summary Stats, and go to Columns. Select the column. We want Beyonce number 1. And then we want to select the mean. And I'm just going to select the standard deviation just because I want to see the variability. And then compute. And so here is now our mean and our standard deviation. 4.66 and the standard deviation of 1.19. Now this is the mean of the word length, right? The length of each word. So the average word length in this small sample was 4.66 with a standard deviation, so 4.66 letters long, and a standard deviation of 1.19, so 1.2 letters of the standard deviation. All right, let's go back to the notes. So then we can say the center appears to be between 4 and 5, but then from StatCrunch we can actually get the mean. The mean of the sample means is 4.66. It is known that Beyonce wrote the lyrics for all of Destiny's Child songs. The average word length for these songs is 3.64 letters. The true average word length for Crazy in Love, so the population mean, is 3.59, which is not very far from the known Beyonce average word of length 3.64. Based on your samples, do you have good evidence that Beyonce did not write the lyrics? No, right? Our data is spread out and our class is a small sample, so we do not have enough evidence to say she didn't write the lyrics. So if you guys don't know this, it was when Beyonce became a solo artist, there was question whether she was writing her own songs or not. And so when Crazy in Love came out, people were wondering if she actually wrote the song. And so that's where this kind of stemmed from. And statisticians came in to play and said, okay, well, they found the average of all the other words in the songs that she had written, and then compared it to Crazy in Love to see how, if she could be the one to write her songs. Because it is well known that particular authors will use the same words very often. This is also how a lot of the historical essays have been discovered as to who wrote them based on the average word length, and they compare, and that's how they know that like Madison wrote certain papers and Hamilton wrote certain papers and things like that. Is based on their known work and the average word length, and then compared to something unknown, and then see, well, who matches, and also what were the common words used. So how does your own sample mean compare to the mean of the population? How does the mean of all the sample means from the class compare to the population mean? So your own sample, depending on what it was, we want to compare it, right? So for me, my own mean was 5.2. That was my average word length. The population mean is 3.59, so I'm actually pretty far away. So what was your sample mean? So here, our mean from example 6. So this is, I'm looking at our sample means, the mean of the sample means is 4.66 and mu is 3.59. So this is higher. So based on this sample means, do you think this sample method of asking you to quickly select 10 words is likely to produce representative samples? No, right? We seem to be pretty far away from the mean. So what would you have liked to know to help you decide? What extra information would you have liked? I guess a better question would be, what were you thinking about when you were choosing the 10 words from the passage? So I'll tell you what I was thinking, because it's hard for you to tell me since this is a video recording. But I was thinking like, okay, this is the song Crazy in Love, and I'm just kind of trying to pick what the song means. So I was choosing words like feeling, crazy, love, hoping, and things like that that are representative of what I thought the meaning of the song was. Had I known that I was looking for the length of the words, I would have chosen words probably differently, right? Looking at it, it's like if I want to know the average word length, then I would pick them differently, pick some really short words like in, and maybe some long words lately by what is the average word length. So knowing that information would have helped me choose a better random sample. So it will be a better way then to choose, now that we know that what we want is the average word length, what can be a better way of choosing. So here's the answer to those. So our samples lacked information. We were choosing based on the song title instead of random word selection. Knowing what we were looking for, right, that we were looking for the average word length would have helped us choose the words better. Suggest methods for deciding whether you have a represented sample. Randomly picking words, maybe systematic sampling, every 25th word, every 10th word, or use a random number generator assigned to words. And so that's actually what we are going to do. So we're going to take a simple random sample. So the key idea is that simple random samples ensure that every sample of size n is equally likely to be selected. So each observational unit in the population is given the same chance of being selected as every other observational unit. So in this case, every word has the same chance of being selected as any other word. So the word I has the same chances as being selected as the word love, for example. So the first step here is I'm gonna give you a sampling frame, so that should be in your module. So you should be able to find a Word document that has the sampling frame on it. In your module, you should see Beyonce survey number 1, then the sampling frame, and then Beyonce survey number 2. So let's go to the sampling frame. And so this is what you will be looking at. And so when you do the random number generator, then come back to the sampling frame and pick out the words.